Kenny Leach again with the National Football Foundation College Hall of Fame, St. Louis Tom Lombardo chapter. And we have an interview today. It's a very special one. Who in the world is more immersed in football than Coach Bill Snyder? So he's with us today. Coach Bill Snyder's had more awards. It'd be easier to list the awards that he didn't have, but he's won the Paul Bear Bryant Award, the AP, Associated Press Coach of the Year Award. He's won the Bobby Dowd Coach of the Year Award twice. He's had the Lifetime Achievement Award, and he was inducted into the College Hall of Fame by the National Football Foundation and the KSU Hall of Fame. So it goes on and on. He's got a stadium named after him. He's got a highway, but once you talk to him, he's about nothing about that. He's about character. He's about individuals. He's about people. So you're going to immensely enjoy this interview with Coach Bill Snyder. Thank you.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm fine, Ken, and yourself?
Doing great. I really greatly appreciate you taking time off for us today.
Well, you're sure welcome. Anything I can do to help.
So I'm going to introduce
Kelly.
Hello.
Kelly is our editor and our tech guru. I think we all need one of those, don't we?
I need 4 or 5.
So let me tell you.
I need one.
Here's what we're doing here, Coach. We're, the National Football Foundation. You're aware of what we do, and we have luncheons for the coaches, and we try to get together. With the COVID, it's been very difficult. So, our executive director Bob Button had suggested we do some articles on past award winners, and that kind of morphed into Zoom calls, and of course, anything related to the NFF. You were previous NFF College Hall of Fame coach. I thought that you'd be a great interest story for our members.
Well, I appreciate that. How can I help?
Well, sir, I think the first thing that I'd like to do is we're going to introduce, and we have all of these awards if you won one after another, after another, after another. But if you wouldn't mind starting out with the NFF Coaching Hall of Fame dinner, and maybe tell us a little bit about what you remember about that night.
Well, I remember it was a wonderful night. Now, I've been numerous times prior to that, and I've always been enamored by it. So many famous people in attendance. Always been so proud of all of the inductees and the players as well as the coaches and how well they handle themselves. And the evening that I was inducted was truly special. I had the opportunity to give the address in behalf of the other coach and I think 17 players that were being inducted. And that was truly an honor and enjoyable as well. And then the opportunity to meet all of those. I hadn't met the coach, but I hadn't met all the players, have an opportunity to meet them. So just a, wonderful night. And we had some events prior to the induction ceremonies. And we had, there was a large number of people that were dear friends of mine, and most significantly, my family. We have 5 children and 8 grandchildren at the time, and everyone was able to be in attendance with us. And the event that we had the night before involved our children and a lot of other friends and people that I had been associated with during the period of time, and a lot of coaches that normally attend the Hall of Fame dinner came to that function, and it was just truly an enjoyable time.
Very memorable, it sounds like, and you probably got to talk with some of your colleagues, which is always enjoyable, right?
Well, it is. The people that in particular that came to the function the night before, you know, the Tom Osbornes, the Mac Browns, et cetera, you know, people who have always been, you know, close and dear friends to me, and for them to take the time to come, not just to the event, which they always normally go to, but to the, you know, the reception for me the night before, I thought was very special.
And Coach, I know you don't like to talk about things, but you are a legendary coach. You know, I mean, everyone knows that. How did it all start? When did you first think about getting into coaching? I know you played. Maybe take us back to Little League or high school, and bring us up a little bit on how that all developed.
Well, I mean, the good fortune that I've been able to have, and that's what it is, good fortune, is a result of so many other people, you know, that have been involved, as you've indicated here, that have been involved in my career throughout my life. I'm asked all the time, you know, when did I decide that I wanted to get into coaching? Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, I always thought that that's what I would do. I mean, since I can remember, I know when I was a young child, I was an only child of a single parent. My mother and father had separated when I was 6 years old, I believe. And my mother, who strongest person I've ever known in my life, the most amazing person I've ever known, took me down. She worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, to make ends meet, you know, for us. And she took me down to the YMCA and enrolled me in a YMCA and shared with them that I would be there at such and such a time after my grade school was out every day. And if I was a minute late, to call her and she would correct the issue. And, you know, I always wanted to do what my mother asked. I say I always wanted to. I probably didn't, but I always did because of the impact she had on my life. But the point being that I was at the YMCA every day, so I got invested in athletics and played basketball and baseball and softball, and was a competitive swimmer, just played all of the sports. And I just always thought that since I had such a love for athletics, that my career, when I thought about, okay, what do you do for the rest of your life? It always made sense that I would be a coach. I didn't necessarily think football, basketball, or baseball, whatever. I just thought I would be a coach. In fact, I became a coach, a swimming coach, before I ever became a football coach. And I was a swimming coach of the city swim team in St. Joseph, Missouri, when I was still in high school. I went to William Jewell College after high school, mm-hmm. and participated in football and helped start the competitive swimming team, and swam on the swimming team as well. Tried to play baseball. I wasn't good at any of it, but I loved playing. And so, you know, as I said, there's a number of people that had a great impact on my life. Started with, as I said, with my mother. I know, you know, at my high school, had a vice principal who was just a wonderful individual in my life, who guided me through sometimes difficult times when I wasn't a great fan of being in school. Loved to be there for athletics, but had a hard time getting interested in anything other than shop class, which I loved. I wouldn't miss that for the world. And made tons of, I'll show you something.
Okay.
I'm still so proud of it. I've got tons of things like this because I love working on a lathe.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if you can see that. That's a picture of me when I was a child, but that's not the important thing. It's I made all of that and put it all together on a lathe when I was in high school.
Wow.
And I've absolutely loved doing it. And since I've been coaching, I've always threatened I'm going to get a lathe and go back to do this. And I am going to someday if I can create the time to do it. But, you know, I miss school sometimes, except for the shop class. And the vice principal knew exactly where to find me. And he would, I'd go home and you know, I wasn't doing anything bad. I'd go home and my mother was at work. So I had you know, a basketball net made out of hanger wire and string. And I'd put it up on my bed was a Murphy bed. We had a 1-room apartment, and that wasn't 1 bedroom. It was 1 room, period. And so my bed was a Murphy bed, came out of the wall, and I would hook that pseudo basketball goal up on the top of that, and I'd roll up socks and put tape around them, and I'd shoot baskets all day until Mr. Hohen, who was the vice principal, would knock on the door and say, "It's time for you to be in school, young man." And so away we'd go, and I'd go back to school.
You know, Mark Twain used to say that when he'd skip school, that he never let his schooling interfere with his education.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that, I assure you. But anyway, I had enjoyed my high school time, and then another fellow that came into my life, a fellow by the name of Dr. Norris Patterson. Dr. Patterson was the athletic director and the head football coach at William Jewell College and head of the physical education department. And he came to see me when I was in St. Joe, my hometown, and asked if I would want to come to William Jewell College. I had been, when I got out of high school, I attended the University of Missouri because I wanted to play football there, and I couldn't get a scholarship. I wasn't good enough to do that. And that was when you could play, when they had freshman football and varsity football. And I wanted to be a quarterback. You know, I was brought up in a single wing offense with single wing coaches, but I always wanted to be a quarterback. And I tried out for quarterback, and I was the 8th team quarterback on the freshman team. So I found out very quickly that that wasn't going to be where my career was. So I went back to St. Joseph, and Dr. Patterson came and visited with me and asked me if I would want to come to William Jewell College, and he provided me with some jobs so I could earn my way through. And it was non-scholarship school, and I enjoyed my time there and the impact that he had on my life.
There's an interesting thing. Obviously, you know George Welch, you know, and he was my coach, and I remember we had 8 quarterbacks that were recruited on our team, and I asked him one time, I go, "Coach, how come you get 8 quarterbacks when you know you're only going to have maybe 3?" He says, "Well, usually on these high schools, those are the best athletes, so we can turn them into something else."
True, yeah.
So you went from quarterback.
A coach, I always thought that, and that's why we like to bring quarterbacks into our program.
What did you go to from quarterback, wide receiver, I think, right?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I've remained, well, when I went to William Jewell College, there was, and the answer to the question is partially, Dr. Patterson was a single wing coach. In fact, my high school coaches were from his program. That's why they were single wing coaches. So I played tailback, you know, which was the closest thing to the quarterback. And then they also used me as a wing back because I was left-handed, and they could hand the ball off to me and on what looked like a reverse, and it ended up being a left-handed pass. So I don't know if I ever completed one, but nevertheless, that's the way they wanted to utilize me. But I enjoyed my time there at William Jewell and finished in 4 years. And then Dr. Patterson still remained in my life, and realized that, you know, that coaching was going to be the right thing for me. And he actually got me my first job, which was a high school coaching job and teaching job at a small school in Missouri, Gallatin, Missouri, K through 12, 100 students. So it was quite a place, but I was an assistant in every sport that they had, including women's sports, and taught Spanish, which I knew very little about at the time. So I had to kind of stay ahead of the curve in regards to being prepared each day in the classroom.
Well, most times, I mean, I know, college coaches, it's a pretty tough life because most of them inevitably you're moving every 4 or 5 years, but you've had a blessing there, haven't you? Where you've had some really good places to hang your hat for a long time, right?
Well, it didn't start out that way. I probably was like an awful lot of young coaches, and I just wanted to climb the ladder as rapidly as I could. And what I found out, after a while is that it was important for me, and I thought a valuable lesson basically for anyone, to simply be where you are. I was someplace trying to get someplace else, and consequently, in all reality, maybe we had some successes, but I didn't do nearly as good a job as I was capable of, because I was always trying to get someplace else. And when I finally, because I went to, from Gallatin, I went back and got my master's degree at Eastern New Mexico University. And then I went to Indio High School to be an assistant coach. Left there and went to USC to become what they now call a graduate assistant for John McKay, and do some work towards my doctorate. Went from there back to Indio to become the head football coach at the high school. Left there to go to Foothill High School in Santa Ana, California, which was a large high school at the time. Left there after several years, 5 years, I think, to go to Austin College in Sherman, Texas as an assistant coach. Was there for 2 or 3 years, and then went to North Texas State. And so I'd moved around, so much. And when I went to North Texas, I said, this is it. I'm not going to go anymore. I like Hayden Fry was the head coach. He hired me. I enjoyed working for him. I said, this is unfair. My children were all young at the time. And I said, this is no more moving. So
be where you are. Be where you are.
3 years later, Hayden was accepted the job at the University of Iowa. And if I didn't go with him, I had no job. So we went to Iowa, and I said, okay, now this is for the second time, this is it, no more. And I went 10 years, and when I was offered the opportunity to go to Kansas State or come to Kansas State, I said, no, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not interested. Had a number of offers because Hayden's program was very successful at Iowa. Had a number of offers to leave there many, many times. Never interviewed for a job, never accepted offers. I said, this is going to be it. And so, the Kansas State thing was kind of a unique arrangement, the way it worked out, and how I finally, because I declined the offer numerous times, and eventually, got to a point where I made the decision to come. And once I got here, I said, once again, this is the last time. And so we made it the last time. And that was,
so Coach, it sounds like, like Dr. Patterson was one of your mentors. You had probably a number of people that mentored you, and then you went on to mentor others. And can you give us, pass on some information on that itself? What's the importance of mentorship?
Well, I think, first and foremost, it's really having a genuine interest in the well-being of those people that you are trying to guide and direct to become successful in all facets of their lives. You know, I think as a football coach, so many times, you know, people view a football coach as someone who, you know, it's all about football. You know, I'm going to give you guidance and direction to become the best football player that you can be. Oftentimes it's said, I think that kind of goes with the territory. Everybody's obligated to say, yeah, I'm going to care about your son. I'm going to care about this young man. And too often the, in parentheses, is if he plays well for us. And that's not the way it is. And it was important to me because again, I had, you know, mentors that what was important was that I was doing the right things in my life, that I was trying to become the best person, the best student, be successful in all facets of my life. And football was only one of them, and was going to be, you know, short-lived in terms of playing the game. And I think that's something I learned at an early age, and something that became extremely important to me, was to be able to give guidance and direction to young people to become successful in all facets of their lives, and doing it the right way. You know, what we consider to be what prominent people and caring people truly believe to be, you know, the right way.
Well, you know, I've heard you being called the greatest architect of football turnaround at KSU, and of all things, isn't that a fitting, you know, title at a great architectural school? But tell me, what was your mindset when you came in, and what did you have to do, culture-wise or whatever, in order to try to turn that around?
Well, you know, it was a very unique situation. You know, I think everybody knows Kansas State was the only program in the history of college football to have lost more than 500 games. Mm-hmm. The only program that had ever lost 500 football games in the history of college football. And when I arrived, there were 47 players. That's when you could have 95 on scholarship. We had 47 players. And that number went down because, you know, players were discouraged, unhappy. There was not a player in the program when I went there that had ever participated in a game at Kansas State in which they had won. Wow. So every player there had lost every game they had participated in at Kansas State.
It's hard. It's hard to show up for practice. It's hard to get them motivated, you know, to be there and participate when you transition. So how did you do that? How did you address that culture of the mindset and you know, kind of some people come complacent with, you know, they're used to losing, you know, that type of thing. So how'd you address that?
Well, as I indicated to all of our players, in fact, one of the very first meetings that we had, I took all of our players out of the meeting room that we had, which was at the time was folding chairs and solid cement floor with no covering on it whatsoever, and basically an empty room. But I took the players out on the football field, and I had somebody turn the scoreboard on for me. And I got all the players together, and I pointed to the scoreboard, and I said, I will not assess you based on what that scoreboard says. And my assessment of you is going to be whether or not you make the effort and achieve improvement every day in all facets of your life. That each day that you will have a direction to become improved as a person, as a student, as a family member, a member of our football team. And we will have a program in place, which we did, to help you achieve that. So it's not going to be just words. It's going to be a daily program in which you are invested in that will guide your improvement in all of those areas, not just football. And it is important to me that you realize that it's going to take a number of things on your part. And these are things that that I am going to insist upon, and it will be a matter of sacrifice on your part, but I will do everything I can to give you the guidance in order to achieve successes in these intrinsic values, if you will.
Yeah, right.
You know, hard work, discipline, responsibility, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said, we will have a program for each one of those. And if you will invest yourself in it, you will indeed become better every single day of your life, a little bit in each and every one of these. And then we would, I say we, you know, I would identify a series, long list of different steps that each, small steps that they can take individually in order to get closer and closer and closer to that being the best each day that they can possibly be. So we would, you know, establish, we had a process for, and a process is extremely important. You know, that was most important to us, is what is the process for whatever it is you're trying to achieve. But first thing that I did after that was sit down with each and every one of them after explaining to each, you know, what are your priorities in life? What do you really desire to take place in your life? And from those priorities, will you list the goals, things that you would like to achieve? So I sent all of them home with a notepad. I've got one of them around here. I don't. Sent them home with a notepad, just like that. And the first thing that I asked them to do was take a 10-day period. And every night for 10 consecutive days is to write in that book what your priorities are in life. Go back and look at it the next day, erase, add to, whatever, but continue to process that for 10 days. Once you've done that, then let's, you and I sit down and talk about it, which we did. Then I asked them to take the same notebook and now go back and define, based on those priorities that you've settled on, define your goals in life from now on forward. And write down each night for 10 nights, write down what my goals are. And tomorrow night, you will erase some of them and add something else. And it will keep your mind on it so that every night when you lie down, you have thought about it at some point in time during the day and make any adjustments or changes that you have. Then once they had completed that, I would sit down with each of them and we take each one of the goals and define what are the steps, objectives, if you will, what are the steps that you would have to take in order to achieve this goal, and what steps to achieve this goal. And the reason, obviously, it's, I think, a proven direction towards goal achievement, but, you know, we're dealing with and have been with kind of an age of what you would call instant self-gratification. Mm-hmm. You know, as a young person, I want it now. If I can't have it right now, then I'm going to move on to something else, rather than, you know, working to achieve something that doesn't come readily, easily. It's kind of a hard way to live a life, but nevertheless, that the significance of just those little steps was that they weren't complex and difficult, and it moved, but it moved your position just a little bit closer to achieving that goal. And the value of it was that each youngster saw, I achieved that. So yes, I'll come back tomorrow for the next one, and so on down the road. And I didn't get discouraged because it didn't come easily, and consequently back away from my goal and move on to something else. So that was kind of the process.
When you look at all the years you've coached and the players you've had, I'd be willing to bet you got about 2,000 people out there that have that little notebook tucked away someplace and really cherish that thing, I'll bet.
Well, you know, I'm a pack rat, okay? And I save everything. When I moved out of my office after this last retirement, I had more boxes than I could house in our home. Yeah. Our home is full of boxes that I haven't gotten to yet. And, you know, it's hard even just to get around. My son, who has a home here in Manhattan, he's now at USC as a special teams coordinator, but he keeps his home here in Manhattan. And he has a large shed, or I don't know what you call it, but, you know, it's not just a shed, but it's a large facility that he keeps things in. And I have a whole wall of it, which is about 40 feet long and 20 feet high, just stacked with boxes. I have a granddaughter who has a home here, and one stall of her garage is completely full of boxes. My point is that I've kept everything, and consequently, I've kept all of the notes, letters, emails that I have received from ex-players. Wow. And they all express it a different way, but there is, which I appreciate, they express their appreciation for the values and the principles that they learned here at Kansas State. And you know, just the idea that, and what comes so often is, I didn't always get it now or then, mm-hmm. but I certainly get it now.
So when you go out and you're recruiting players, you've got certain things in mind of what you want in order to make the system go, and you're going to adjust your system to the players. But you come across a guy like who's going in Hall of Fame this year, Darren Sproles, and, you know, I mean, just doesn't have the normal height that you look for and everything. So you're a man of faith, and every man of faith has a heart, you know, I mean, it's a big part of it. How do you measure a person's heart? How do you know that player has more than just height?
Well, you know, it was important. I mean, Darren's a perfect example, but we have a ton of young people that have come mm-hmm. through our program who were never recruited by anyone else. Wow. Who have gone on, and many of them were walk-ons initially, and have gone on to become, you know, All-Americans and NFL players with longevity, etc. But in terms of for us to bring a young person into our program, which is, you know, what you're asking, you know, we look, you know, and certainly being a fine athlete is significant. But most importantly, you know, to me, was our coaches would go out and find, you know, who were the athletes that could run around and do certain things reasonably well. But I wanted to find out, you know, what are the intrinsic values of that young person? What kind of an individual is he? What kind of effort does he make in the classroom? How is he received within his community? How is he received within his school, high school, community college, whatsoever? I read something here just the day, a small college. And a coach was saying, you know, we're doing something different. We're going into high schools and we're talking to the head coaches. And he was saying something different than what they had previously done at that school. And, you know, it made me think, you know, everybody's going to go talk to the head coach. But our list, let me put it this way, our list of people that we spent time with when we were interested in a young man was his mother, his father, if so, any relatives that we could be in touch with, any friends that he had, male or female, people in his church, at the high school that he was at or the school that he was at. We'd want to visit with secretaries, want to visit with teachers, want to visit with custodians. In other words, people that saw him out of the element of football, that could share with us what kind of a person he really was. You know, because we have our, you know, as a high school athlete, for instance, you're going to do everything you can to, you know, to please your coach, but you become yourself amongst other people. And that's what I wanted to know is, what is yourself? You know, what kind of a person are you? And, you know, that would be the decision maker for us, regardless of what the talent level was. That would be the decision maker. And the other thing that became important was, if you had those intrinsic values that were so significant, then my feeling was that you would become a vastly improved player when you got into college. You know, for instance, we're in the state of Kansas. State of Kansas, most of the communities are small communities, and players within a small community don't play just one sport. They play football, they play basketball, they play baseball, they run track. Now, if you go to Texas or Pennsylvania or some of those premier football states, you know, a player's year-round football. And so, you know, when a youngster from some of those states comes out, he's almost at his peak level of performance. And so the level of improvement is somewhat thin. But you take some of those youngsters that have not been in football. I mean, they play football, you know, a couple months out of the year, 3 months at best, and the other 9, 10 months are involved in other sports. And so consequently, their room for continued improvement is quite immense. And if we do our job, then that young person that is, you know, maybe not seen as like a Darren Sproles, seen as a paramount college athlete, can become exactly that. You know, and so many of them have.
You know, that's always been a debate. I mean, especially lately, where kids are specializing more in sports, and I don't know how you feel about that. I've got my own opinion on that, but I've always felt the more well-rounded kids. How do you feel about that debate on specializing in one sport or playing multiple sports?
Well, I think our history would prove that that individual that is able to be competitive year-round. You play football, you know, you may play whatever in high school, you may play 9, 10, 11 ball games.
Yeah.
That's 9 or 10 opportunities to really become competitive. You play all sports, you know, that's 50, 60, 70, plus every day of practice, rather than just 3 months of practice. You got, you know, virtually 9, 10, 11, 12 months of practice, you know, more opportunities to become a quality player and a more competitive individual. So I'm all in favor of diversifying your activities. Plus, you know, skills in the game of football. You know, you spend so much time teaching how to block and how to tackle and how to do things at quote unquote, the point of attack, you know, right there. And yet, when you are a multifaceted athlete, you not only can do those things probably a little better, what takes place between the snap of the ball and when all that takes place, you're better. In other words, you get there quicker. Mm-hmm. You get there with more agility. You get there as a better athlete, all-round athlete. So I'm all in favor of diversification.
The Jim Thorpe concept, I guess we can call it, right?
Very much so. Right.
So, okay, so we've got a clip. Kelly, I don't know if you can pull this up now. We just did a Zoom interview with the DeSmet head coach and Robert Steeples, and really impressive guy. And we told him we were going to be talking to you next. We said, what question would you ask him? So he gave us a question that had to do with, players, then and players now. If we can run it, if you can hear it, if not, I'll just go ahead and I'll repeat the question, and then we'll edit his thing in.
Surely.
Coach Snyder, congratulations on a quality coaching football career. One question I have for you is, you've been around the game for quite some time, and the athletes have probably changed significantly from when you first got into the game into where you transitioned out. I wanted to know what adjustments or what challenges did you have adjusting to the current student athletes that you work with in comparison to when you first got into coaching?
I get asked similar questions, quite frequently. And you might remember, I coached for a while and then retired, and then came back and coached for another, 9 or 10 years, something like that, and finally retired again for the last time. And when to answer his question, after I retired the first time and I was out for whatever it was, 3 years and 3 seasons, and when I came back, that was kind of the question that was asked me, is, Coach, you've been away from the game, you're getting older, they're younger, how are you going to relate to today's student athletes, the ones that you are now being involved with? And I said, it's a pretty simple deal. I said, if each one of those youngsters, if a youngster wants to be the best he can be, I'll have no problem relating to him. If a youngster wants to do the things that are right in his life, I'll have no issues relating to him. I can relate to him quite well. If an issue, or if a young player wants to be as good a student as he can be, not necessarily A or B, whatever, but just the best that he can be as a student, I can relate to that. I can relate to him, and he'll be able to relate to me, and on like that. In other words, I went through a value system and identified, if a youngster wants to be committed, if he wants to accept responsibility, if he will hold himself accountable, et cetera, then I can work with him and he will accept me. If not, then no, I will have a difficult time relating to that young person.
Well, core values are normally timeless. That's how they become core values, I would think. But, so Coach, I know, I just appreciate the time you spent with us, for one thing. I always we do this for a couple of reasons, and I'd like you to maybe, 2 things. I'd like you to one, maybe tell our sponsors and our memberships why you appreciate, because you're one, you know the values of this, but why do you appreciate the work that the NFF does and the College Hall of Fame does? What does that bring to the table and to the community?
Well, really so much. We have, in the state of Kansas, we have a chapter here, and they just renamed the chapter Bill Snyder, Kansas Football Foundation Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And I'm honored by that. But that wasn't what I was interested in. I was asked to be a part of the program and to be able to give some guidance and direction and help, if you will, to coaches within the state, high school coaches. And it really became significant. So I get to do talks that get, passed around out there and address things that I feel, just again, it's personal things that I feel are significant about how, and so many of them do that already and probably do far more. But address those things that make them of great value, not just to that individual player, but to their community, to their high school, and to their community. And so that they are assisting life in whatever community they happen to live in. There's so many things, that a football coach can do. A football coach is seen with a great deal of respect, initially. And, what you do with that makes a big difference on how you're seen or viewed, but most importantly is a way in which you can enhance the development of your community. And so, being able to provide the leadership within your community, as in your players, to assist in that, which benefits the players immensely, but also benefits the community. And again, it goes back to, a value system and being able to do the appropriate things and, addressing a lot of community things. For instance, and I would share it with high school coaches, we take, when I was coaching here, we take our players into the community to become active members of the community. We take our players into retirement centers to spend time with the people that were in the retirement centers, to hospice houses and to spend time with them. We take them into the Boys and Girls Club, into Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and other youth organizations to try to impact the young people that are in those youth communities, as well as, I think, embrace elderly people in retirement centers and health institutes. But, just so many things like that. Volunteering within the community to help in a variety. A number of years ago, we had a major flood in whatever that was, 2008, 2009, something like that, a major flood in Manhattan, Kansas. We have a large lake outside of Manhattan, and the dam broke and it flooded a big portion of Manhattan. And every one of our players joined forces. We went down and we helped them clean up. We helped them. We filled sandbags, to put up to retain the water. We went into each home that had been flooded or into homes and helped the owners, clean up their homes. We've done so many things like that within the community, and our players learned from that. It wasn't just helping others, but it was our players learned a little bit about giving back and being a viable, caring member of a community, so that when they do graduate and they go into their careers, wherever they happen to be, that they've learned some lessons about being able to give back in those communities as well.
Gosh, thank you very much, sir. I'm just so grateful that I had a chance to talk to you, and just to know, it's not about the stadiums and the highways that are named after you. You are just a good person, and I am just really happy to have a chance to talk to you in person.
Very, very kind, very gracious. I appreciate that. And Kelly, I appreciate visiting with you as well.
I'm so grateful to know you, Coach. Appreciate the time.
My